There are moments in life when you feel something shifting inside you, quietly, without any announcement. It might happen late at night, long after the world around you has fallen still. The room is dim, the air is soft. Your mind begins drifting along its own currents. You feel yourself thinking about things you usually ignore. The future, the past. The strange feeling that something vast is moving through the universe just beyond the edge of your understanding. It's in these quiet moments that your thoughts become heavier, slower, more reflective. A part of you wonders why humanity looks to the sky for answers, why we fear certain signs, why we are drawn to mysterious events in the heavens, as if something ancient in us still remembers a time when the sky brought warnings we could not afford to ignore. Maybe you felt that subtle tug, that unexplainable sense that the universe is not just background, it is telling a story, and we are somehow part of it. And if you've ever had that feeling, tonight's journey will resonate deeply with you. Before we begin our descent into ancient warnings, cosmic visitors, forgotten texts, and the haunting idea that something might be returning across the darkness of interstellar space, take a moment to settle. Make yourself comfortable. Feel your breath slow slightly. Let the weight of the night rest on your shoulders like a soft blanket. And now, before we continue, tell me something in the comments. Where are you listening from tonight? Are you lying in bed in a quiet apartment? Resting on a couch after a long day? Listening through headphones as you fall asleep? Or sitting somewhere far away from city lights, where the stars reveal more than most people ever see? I truly love reading where this community drifts in from each night. Now let us gently step into the story, because tonight we explore an idea that has lived in the shadows for thousands of years, through Sumerian clay tablets, cosmic mysteries, strange interstellar objects, and the uneasy suspicion that what humanity fears may be something humanity has seen before. We begin with a question that has been whispered across ages. What if something ancient is returning? To understand why this question matters, we need to step back, far back, long before telescopes, before modern science, before our world was mapped, before electricity lit our nights. Picture an ancient night in Sumer, 5,000 years ago. The desert air is cool. A lone scribe sits inside a temple chamber, illuminated only by the trembling light of oil lamps. Clay tablets lie before him. Some carry lists of kings, some carry stories, some carry warnings. And among these tablets, dust-covered, cracked, their symbols etched in careful strokes, are passages describing beings not born of earth, beings who came from above, who guided early humans and who, according to some ancient interpretations, would one day return. The Anunnaki. Their presence in mythology is intricate, layered, mysterious. Not simply gods, but beings who moved between realms, beings linked with the heavens, beings associated with knowledge and calamity, with creation and destruction, with cycles that come and go across stretches of time too vast for human memory. Most scholars read these myths symbolically. Others see them as metaphors for natural forces. But there have always been those who believe the stories contain something more, encoded hints, veiled messages, clues to a cosmic pattern. And woven into some of these interpretations is a particular idea, a celestial object associated with the Anunnaki, a world, a visitor, something that moves differently than the planets we know, something with a long, elongated orbit, so long that its last passage lies beyond recorded history, something that passes near Earth only during rare epochs when civilizations shift, rise, or fall. Later generations would give this hypothetical world a name, Nibiru, a world of legend, a world of speculation, a world some consider symbolic, and others consider a forgotten astronomical reality. But myths alone cannot hold our attention for thousands of years unless they resonate with something deeper, something in our psychology, something in our ancient memory, something in our instinctive fear of the sky. Because long before modern science, ancient cultures watched the heavens not as decoration, but as a source of warning. And sometimes the sky did bring warnings. Meteors, comets, unpredictable objects flashing through the night like cosmic messengers, lights that didn't behave like anything familiar, astronomical visitors that appeared suddenly, crossed the firmament with eerie silence, and departed without explanation. To ancient peoples, these were not natural phenomena, they were omens. Even today, the unknown visitor from deep space still carries that instinctive weight. And that brings us to the modern age, to telescopes, observatories, and the moment humanity learned that not everything drifting between the stars moves the way we expect. The first interstellar object ever detected, the elongated, tumbling mystery called ʻOumuamua, arrived in 2017 and baffled astronomers. It moved strangely. It accelerated without explanation. It reflected sunlight in inconsistent ways. It did not behave like a comet or asteroid. It came from outside the solar system, and it left as quietly as it came. Scientists debated. Observers speculated. Some saw it as natural. Others wondered whether something more purposeful had brushed past our world. But ʻOumuamua did something deeper. It changed the way we think about the cosmos. It reminded us that the solar system is not isolated. It is visited. And once something is visited once, visitation becomes possible again. Then came a second interstellar object, 2I Borisov in 2019. More comet-like, more traditional, yet still undeniably foreign to our skies. Two visitors, back to back, after millions of years with none at all. Humanity felt something then, a quiet stirring of ancient instinct. Because the appearance of rare celestial visitors has always preceded periods of change in mythic cycles. And then, in 2024, astronomers identified a third interstellar traveler, 3I Atlas. Another object, another outsider, another anomaly entering our system from deep space. To mainstream science, 3I Atlas is simply a new data point, a strange but explainable comet-like object from another star system. But to those who study ancient texts, to those who read Sumerian warnings, to those who examine mythological cycles for patterns, 3I Atlas raised a question that feels both old and new. What if these interstellar visitors are markers of something larger, something cyclical, something that aligns with ancient stories about distant worlds returning after long absences? What if humanity is not merely observing random cosmic debris, but the beginning of a sequence? Because buried in the oldest tablets, written by scribes who believed themselves recording truths, lies a warning that the sky once delivered upheaval and would do so again when a wandering world returned from the outer darkness. And the timing they describe, epochs, cycles, long orbits, matches eerily with the kind of trajectory a distant hypothetical world might follow if it existed far beyond Pluto. A world with a tilted path, a deep invisible arc, a long return time. A world like Nibiru. For decades, the scientific community has debated the possibility of an undiscovered distant planet, something massive, far away, unseen. Some call it Planet 9, others Planet X. Mathematical models suggest something large may indeed disturb comets on the solar system. But in alternative interpretations of Sumerian myth, the idea is older, more symbolic, more ominous. According to these interpretations that must be framed carefully using cautious language, the Anunnaki were not merely beings of myth, but inhabitants of a wandering world that moves in and out of the solar system on a cycle so long that entire civilizations rise and fall between its appearances. And if such a world existed, its return would not be sudden. It would be preceded by signs, disruptions in comet populations, unusual objects entering inner space, anomalies on the solar system's fringes. Some believers hold that interstellar visitors could act as early indicators, that the sky sends smaller messengers before the larger traveler arrives. They point to timing, to patterns, to coincidence bordering on design. 3 interstellar objects in less than 10 years, after millions of years of silence. ʻOumuamua, 2-eye Borisov, 3-eye Atlas. 3 visitors, 3 anomalies, 3 warnings according to certain ancient interpretations. And among all of them, the arrival of 3-eye Atlas triggered the most speculation, not because of what it is, but because of where it came from. Its trajectory traces a path aligned, roughly, loosely, speculatively, with the region of the sky some ancient texts associate with the return path of a wandering world. No scientific paper will claim this, no astronomer will state it as fact, but in mythological analysis, symbolism matters, direction matters, timing matters, cycles matter. And something about 3-eye Atlas arriving now has reignited old questions. Questions whispered by people who still feel the ancient tension between humanity and the cosmos. Questions that drift through our minds at night when the world grows quiet and our imagination becomes a bridge to older ways of thinking. What if something is approaching on a long orbit? What if ancient civilizations saw it before? What if their warnings were not metaphors, but memories? To explore these questions, we must descend deeper into Sumerian origins, into tablets so old that modern cities are younger than their ink. Tablets describing beings who came down, beings who taught, beings who departed, beings who promised to return when the cycles of the heavens moved again. Slow your breathing. Let the images form softly in your mind. We are entering a deeper part of the story now. The part where myth, astronomy, memory, and possibility begin to blend into something ancient, cosmic, and quietly unsettling. There is much to uncover, much to decode, much to understand about why ancient peoples feared the sky at certain times, and why modern people have begun to feel something similar. But that is the journey ahead, And this is only the beginning. Imagine the earliest Sumerian nights, thousands of years before electricity, before telescopes, before the sky lost its mystery to the glow of human cities. The darkness was absolute, stretching from horizon to horizon like a vast bowl turned upside down. The only illumination came from flickering oil lamps, the quiet glow of hearth fires, and above all, the stars. To modern eyes, the stars are distant, beautiful, scientific. To ancient eyes, they were alive. They pulsed with significance. They moved with intention. They were the writing of the gods across the canvas of night. The Sumerians believed that the heavens were not empty. They were the domain of beings far older than humanity, beings who shaped destinies, beings who had descended once and could descend again. Among the countless stars, the Sumerians identified constellations, omens, patterns. They tracked the paths of wandering lights, planets, moving against the fixed backdrop of stars. They recorded lunar cycles with exquisite precision. They observed eclipses, comets, rare astronomical visitors. Everything in the sky mattered. It mattered so much that entire priestly classes existed solely to interpret celestial events. These early astronomer priests were neither mystics nor scientists, but something in between. A role that existed before the world separated spirituality from knowledge. Their work was practical. Interpretations guided agriculture. Their predictions protected the city. Their warnings helped kings navigate moments of danger. But there were rare nights when even these expert skywatchers became uneasy. Nights when a light appeared where no light should be. Nights when something bright crossed the sky at an impossible angle. Nights when a strange object arrived from a direction unconnected to the usual paths of planets or known stars. In their tablets, they wrote of these events carefully, cautiously, as if afraid to describe them too boldly. A star moved against the others. A torch crossed the sky and did not return. A messenger from the outer darkness passed overhead. To them, these were not simple astronomical occurrences. They were warnings. And among the oldest warnings were those tied to the Anunnaki. The Anunnaki appear in Sumerian myth as beings associated with the sky, the earth, the underworld, and the cycles of kingship. Their roles shift depending on the period, but their presence remains consistent. They are powerful, knowledgeable, and deeply connected to celestial events. Some ancient interpretations portray them as watchers over cosmic cycles. Some portray them as judges. Some portray them as teachers. Some portray them as bringers of order. Some portray them as beings whose comings and goings shaped epochs. The idea that they might return is not modern at all. It is ancient, written into the earliest texts preserved on clay. And intertwined with these ideas is another concept, a celestial object associated with their movement. A world that arrives at long intervals. A world tied to the cycles of destiny. A world that passes near Earth only during transformative ages. Later ages called it Nibiru. Whether Nibiru was a real celestial body, a mythological symbol, or a misunderstood astronomical term is debated endlessly. But to the ancient Sumerians, the observers who tracked the sky with meticulous attention, Nibiru was associated with transition, a point in the heavens where the paths of gods and fate intersected, a marker of cosmic alignment, a sign of profound change. Sumerian star priests interpreted any unusual celestial visitor with heightened attention. They believed the heavens spoke in rare events, not common ones. A comet that behaved strangely could mark danger. A wandering object from beyond the known sky could signify a shift in eras. So when modern astronomy suddenly identifies not one, not two, but 3 interstellar objects entering our solar system in rapid succession, it echoes something ancient, something the Sumerians would not have ignored. We live in an age where the night sky is mapped, photographed, catalogued, measured. And yet, even with all our knowledge, we still feel something when an object approaches from interstellar space. A quiet discomfort, a subtle curiosity, a whisper of instinct. Because deep in the human psyche, the sky still carries meaning. To understand why, we need to step deeper into Sumer itself, into their worldview, their fears, their cosmology, and their relationship with the heavens. Picture a bustling Sumerian city, Uruk. The streets are narrow, winding between sun-baked clay homes. Children run barefoot across the dusty ground. Merchants call out prices of barley, fish, and dates. Priests move slowly through temple courtyards, carrying incense burners that release aromatic smoke into the hot air. But above all this noise, in the highest point of the city, stands the ziggurat. Its terraces rise like a man-made mountain, each level narrowing as it climbs toward the heavens. On the topmost platform sits a shrine, the meeting point between earth and sky. The ziggurat is not merely a temple, it is an axis, a hinge, a cosmic bridge. The Sumerians believed the gods descended on this axis. Signs came down through it. Warnings rose up through it. And among the most closely monitored signs were those related to the path of Nibiru. In their cosmology, Nibiru was associated with crossing points, the moment when celestial paths intersect, when cycles complete, when eras shift. Not all tablets agree on its nature. Some call it a star. Some call it a planet. Some call it a symbol. Some call it a gateway. Some call it the place of transition. Regardless of interpretation, Nibiru is always tied to change, and change, to the ancient world, carried weight. Change could mean floods. Change could mean drought. Change could mean the rise or fall of kings. Change could mean famine or prosperity. Change could mean destruction or renewal. And because the Sumerians believed the sky controlled change, they watched it obsessively. Astronomical anomalies were never dismissed. They were decoded. So if they lived today, if Sumerian priests stood beneath modern skies and they saw our timeline, 2017, ʻOumuamua. 2019, Borisov. 2024, 3I Atlas. 3 objects from outside the solar system arriving in less than a decade. They would not call it coincidence. They would call it pattern. And they would begin preparing their warnings. But what exactly did ancient warnings say? Some describe a cycle when the heavens open and foreign stars appear. Some describe a time when the watchers return. Some describe a moment when the world of the gods approaches again. These phrases are symbolic. Their meaning is debated. No one can claim certainty. But something about them feels familiar, in a way that bypasses logic and speaks instead to intuition. Because even modern astronomers admit, we are only now beginning to understand how many objects drift between stars. and how many may eventually pass through our solar system. The Sumerians, without technology, sensed something we are just now discovering through instruments. The heavens are not still. They are alive with motion. Celestial visitors do not arrive at random. There are patterns we are only beginning to see. This leads us to a deeper question. Why did ancient people connect astronomical cycles with the return of beings like the Anunnaki? The simplest answer is psychological. When the world feels uncertain, humans seek meaning. But the deeper answer lies in the nature of myth itself. Ancient myths are not mere stories. They are vessels that carry memory across ages. When a flood destroys a region, its memory becomes a myth. When a comet terrifies a civilization, its path becomes encoded in legend. When a drought or famine reshapes a kingdom, its cause becomes associated with the heavens. Myths are not literal records. They are symbolic records of real experiences. And the Sumerians lived in a world where the sky did not behave predictably. Astronomical anomalies changed history. Visitors arrived. Objects appeared. Comets burned through the atmosphere with silent menace. Bolides fell from the sky. Meteor impacts shook the ground. Strange lights drifted across the desert horizon. So they encoded these events in stories. Stories involving beings who moved with the stars. Beings who departed. Beings who returned. Beings whose timing was tied to celestial cycles. The Anunnaki may or may not have been literal beings, but the cycles associated with them were based on observation. Cycles of change. Cycles of upheaval. Cycles of cosmic visitors. And that is what makes modern events unsettling to those who read mythology symbolically. Because our age, the age of telescopes, satellites and data, has begun to echo ancient descriptions in unexpected ways. Objects entering from deep space, comets from beyond the Oort cloud, unusual trajectories, strange accelerations, increasing frequency of interstellar visitors. This does not prove ancient warnings were literal. It does not prove Nibiru is real. It does not prove the Anunnaki were beings of flesh and bone. But it does raise a question the ancient world would have taken seriously. Why now? Why is the solar system suddenly receiving visitors after millions of years of silence? Why do these visitors come from directions associated, however loosely, however symbolically, with celestial pathways described in myth? Why does Three-Eye Atlas arrive at a moment when modern astronomy is actively searching for a large, unseen world beyond Neptune? Why does the cycle of interstellar arrivals match the ancient belief that cosmic signs precede cosmic events? These questions are interpretable in countless ways. They do not prove anything. They simply echo. Echoes that feel familiar across time. If we step deeper into this echo, we find Sumer's oldest narratives. Stories of the world before civilization. Of ancient epochs when beings came from the sky and brought knowledge to early humanity. Some interpret these stories literally. Others see symbolism. Scholars debate. Mystics speculate. Historians caution restraint. But no matter the interpretation, the stories share a theme. Humanity's relationship with the cosmos is not passive. It is interactive. It is cyclical. It is shaped by events beyond the Earth. As we move through this narrative, we will travel deeper into ancient fears, ancient memories, and ancient interpretations of celestial cycles. But for now, let the image settle in your mind. A lonely ancient scribe, seated in a dim room, pressing symbols into wet clay with a reed stylus. He pauses, gazes at the sky through a narrow temple doorway, and sees something bright. Something not on any star chart, moving slowly across the horizon. He watches silently, heart thudding softly in his chest, knowing that such events are never meaningless. He returns to his tablet and etches a phrase. A foreign star has entered the sky. 5,000 years later, humanity observes ʻOumuamua, Borisov, and Three-Eye Atlas. 3 foreign stars, 3 visitors from deep space, 3 reminders that the heavens still move in ways we do not fully understand. And when ancient myths speak of returning worlds, of cosmic cycles, of warnings hidden in the sky, it becomes hard not to wonder whether those old warnings are meant for moments exactly like this. When you step far enough back from the modern world, far enough away from its bright screens, its buzzing signals, its constant explanations, you begin to feel something ancient stirring beneath your thoughts. It's a sensation that doesn't often surface in the light of day. It comes instead in quiet moments, when the mind is soft and receptive. It's the feeling that the universe is not fixed, that something vast is always moving, always unfolding, that humanity lives inside a larger story, one written not only on Earth, but in the long, deep currents of the cosmos. Ancient civilizations felt this constantly. They lived beneath a raw, unfiltered sky. They watched the heavens with a sensitivity we can hardly imagine. The sky was not background. It was a living presence. And among all ancient peoples, the Sumerians represent the earliest attempt to understand this presence, to interpret the sky, to decode its motion, to read meaning from its cycles, to understand why the Anunnaki became tied to cosmic change, why Nibiru became tied to long-returning celestial bodies, why ancient warnings felt so urgent. We must understand how the Sumerians saw the cosmos, because their cosmology was not superstition, it was survival. They lived in a world where floods came without warning, where the rivers changed course, where harvests depended on unpredictable cycles, where storms could flatten entire communities overnight. To them, understanding the sky was not curiosity, it was necessity. The heavens were the clock. The heavens were the calendar. The heavens were the map. But beneath this practical knowledge, there was something deeper, a philosophical foundation rooted in the idea that the universe itself flowed through cycles. Cycles of creation, cycles of destruction, cycles of divine presence, cycles of celestial alignment, cycles of rising, worlds and returning worlds. In Sumerian thought, nothing remained still. Everything moved in repeating patterns, and one of those patterns was the long, slow cycle associated with Nibiru. To the ancient mind, the concept of a celestial visitor returning at vast intervals was not strange. They lived in a world where cycles governed everything: the movement of the moon, the return of the sun, the rising of Venus, the pattern of seasons. A long cycle would simply be a larger rhythm, a cosmic breath taken over thousands of years instead of days. And this idea found its way into the oldest stories. Stories of beings who came once, taught, shaped, departed, and promised to return when the cycles of the heavens complete their path. What did this mean? We cannot know, but the pattern resonates. Because modern astronomy is now discovering that worlds can have extreme elliptical orbits, that objects can take thousands of years or tens of thousands to complete a single loop around the Sun, that long-period comets spend most of their lives in deep space before returning in brief, dramatic visits, that entire families of outer bodies appear to share a strange, tilted orbital cluster, something that suggests a large, unseen gravitational influence. Planet 9, Planet X, a distant world, a mathematically inferred giant. Whatever name science chooses, the concept matches, in structure if not in detail, the old idea of Nibiru. And when something new and unexpected enters the solar system, ʻOumuamua, Borisov, 3-eye atlas, the ancient pattern feels closer. But to truly understand the weight of these patterns, we need to enter the worldview of the ancient astronomer priest, the one who lived 5,000 years before any modern theory, but who looked at the night sky with a clarity we have lost. Imagine him standing atop a ziggurat at midnight. The desert wind is cool. The lamps are extinguished. Only the stars remain, bright, sharp, unpolluted. He watches the steady, predictable movements, the rising constellations, the drifting planets, the shimmering belt of the Milky Way. These are reassuring. They reflect order. But then, a light appears. A light not on any chart, moving strangely, moving independently. A foreign star. He has no language for interstellar object, no concept of other planetary systems, no scientific model for visitors from beyond the Sun. But he knows this: anomalies in the sky matter. He descends the temple. He writes carefully on clay. The watchers move again. This phrase appears in variations across several ancient texts. Some interpret watchers as gods, some as angels, some as symbolic forces, some as astronomic omens, some as literal beings. We cannot impose certainty, but we can observe a pattern. Ancient peoples associated unusual sky events with the return of cycle-shifting forces, not because they were primitive, but because they had seen patterns repeat. Floods, famines, droughts,
Strange lights, comets, meteor showers, sudden stars, and afterward, major changes in society. The world of the ancient Near East was shaped by unpredictable cycles in climate, river behavior, and astronomy. It was natural for them to connect these cycles to myths of returning gods. And among all returning cycles, none loomed larger than Nibiru. What made Nibiru unique was not its danger, but its timing. It was not associated with yearly cycles, but with vast ages. To the Sumerians, time came in layers: daily cycles, seasonal cycles, yearly cycles, generational cycles, dynastic cycles, cosmic cycles. Nibiru belonged to the largest layer, the cycles of cosmic eras. And because these cycles were so long, their effects were legendary. So when modern astronomy detects interstellar objects entering our solar system in intervals far shorter than expected, it echoes something ancient, not as proof, but as resonance. The ancient world did not fear the sky, it respected it. It believed that cosmic events carried meaning for humanity. And so, as we return to modern times, the age of telescopes, data streams, digital archives, and interstellar detection, we begin to see the ancient worldview reflected in a new form.
Consider the modern phenomenon of sky surveys. Every night, dozens of telescopes sweep the sky, searching for movements, anomalies, and unexpected visitors. Their discoveries have accelerated dramatically over the past decade. Where ancient astronomer priests had ziggurats and tablets, modern astronomers have CCD sensors and orbital models. But both watch the same sky. Both look for patterns. Both search for meaning in movement. And now we ask the same questions that the Sumerians asked long ago. Why now? Why here? Why this sequence? What forces sent these objects toward us? What does their presence signify? Is there a larger pattern we are missing? We must be cautious. We must avoid unsupported claims. We must frame interpretations carefully. But we can still ask, because the human mind has always asked. And when we look at Three-Eye Atlas with ancient eyes that believe the heavens communicate through rare events, we understand why its arrival feels meaningful. Not dangerous, not catastrophic, not proof of anything extraordinary, but meaningful. Because Three-Eye Atlas is not just a comet. It is a messenger, one of the first true interstellar messengers humanity has ever observed. It came from deep space. It crossed unimaginable distances. It entered our system quietly, almost timidly, a faint, passing spark in the black ocean between stars. And some ancient texts say that the return of far travelers signals the beginning of a larger cycle. Whether symbolic or literal, the parallel is striking. But before we dive deeper into Nibiru itself, into its possible identity, its role in myth, its hypothetical orbit, its connection to patterns of celestial visitors, we need one more piece of ancient context. The Sumerians did not believe the gods lived in the sky. They believed the gods traveled through the sky, through the paths of the heavens, through the gates of the firmament, through the crossing place, through the place of transition. These phrases appear in multiple texts. Their meanings are debated. Some view them symbolically. Others view them as early attempts to describe astronomy. But all interpretations share something: movement. The gods moved. The heavens moved. Cycles moved. Nothing was still. And when the Sumerians described Nibiru, they described it with the same language, as something that moves across ages, something that crosses boundaries, something that appears rarely but significantly. So when modern astronomy begins detecting objects entering our solar system from deep space, moving strangely, appearing unexpectedly, it echoes the ancient belief that the heavens contain long-period travelers that return on schedules we can barely comprehend. This resonance does not prove anything. It simply invites reflection, which leads us slowly, gently, toward the core philosophical question beneath tonight's entire journey. Why do myth cycles and astronomical cycles feel connected? Is it coincidence, pattern recognition, symbolic memory, psychological projection, or something deeper? Some scholars argue that myths remember the trauma of early climate events, the Younger Dryas, the melting ice sheets, ancient impacts. Some argue myths record real astronomical events, bright comets, meteor storms, supernovae. Some argue myths encode nothing literal, that they represent the human struggle to understand time, fate, and destiny. But others, carefully, cautiously, suggest that myths may preserve memories of events humanity once experienced but could not fully explain. And in this possibility, this quiet space between science and story, we find the mystery of Nibiru, not as a literal returning planet, not as an inevitable catastrophe, not as a doomsday object, but as a symbol of humanity's ancient relationship with the cosmos, a relationship built on observation, memory, fear, hope, and the belief that the heavens carry messages meant to guide us through ages. And now, standing at the edge of our own age of cosmic visitors, we find ourselves asking the same questions ancient Sumerians whispered under starlit skies. What is moving out there in the darkness between the stars? Why is it arriving now? What cycle is beginning or ending? What ancient pattern is unfolding again? To answer these questions, we must continue deeper still, into the oldest myths, the oldest warnings, and the oldest depictions of the Anunnaki. We must explore who they were, what they represented, and why their return was associated with the movement of long-traveling celestial bodies. The night grows quieter. Your breath settles. Your mind drifts deeper into ancient time. This is where the deeper meanings live, in the space where history and legend begin to blur into something older than both. To understand why the Anunnaki became tied to the idea of returning celestial bodies, we must step deeper into the ancient mind, into the world of those who wrote the earliest stories humanity ever recorded. Their tablets were not fictions, they were not entertainment. They were attempts to describe reality as they understood it. Reality shaped by memory. Reality shaped by cycles. Reality shaped by the sky. When you read Sumerian tablets, you notice something immediately. They do not separate the earthly from the cosmic. They see no boundary between sky and soil, between gods and forces, between celestial events and human fate. Their world was one system, one breathing organism, one interconnected web. And within that web lived the Anunnaki. They were not described with the vague abstraction used for later gods. They were given roles, lineages, tasks. They came and went. They intervened in human affairs. They brought knowledge. They punished imbalance. They rewarded order. In the oldest myths, they appear almost administrative, a council of higher beings with defined responsibilities. Some watched over the sky. Some watched over the earth. Some watched over the deep. Some watched over fate. Some watched the movement of worlds. And always, always, there was an emphasis on their movement. The Anunnaki did not live in temples. They arrived at specific times. They interacted. They withdrew. They returned. Over centuries, their stories evolved, but their essential character remained. They were beings of cycles. This is what makes them unique in ancient mythology. Most mythologies feature gods who are ever present. Greek gods live on Mount Olympus. Egyptian gods inhabit the Duat. Norse gods live in Asgard. But the Anunnaki are different. They come from somewhere. They go somewhere. They return from somewhere. This narrative pattern is unusual. It suggests a deeper origin, either symbolic or derived from historical memory. But what matters is the association they held. When the Anunnaki return, a cycle turns. And when cycles turn, the world changes. Now look again at the ancient Sumerian world, a land shaped by unpredictable rivers, climate shifts, floods, droughts, and rare astronomical events. In that world, Beings associated with cosmic cycles would naturally become woven into stories about great changes, the rise of kings, the fall of cities, the arrival of new ages. The Sumerians recorded these transitions not merely as political events, but as cosmic events. A king did not rise by chance, he was placed by the gods. A city did not fall by mistake, its fall marked a shift in cosmic balance. A flood was not just nature, it was an act of recalibration. Everything tied back to the heavens. So when we speak of the Anunnaki returning, we are touching on the ancient belief that cosmic events and earthly events are two sides of the same cycle. This is what Nibiru represented, a point of transition, a moment when celestial alignment shifts the balance of the world. Not always catastrophic, not always violent, but significant. This is where modern interpretations often get it wrong. Nibiru is not described in Sumerian texts as a world arriving to destroy Earth. It is described as a marker, a sign of change, a sign of renewal, a sign of movement between ages. But the ancients also believed that celestial markers could bring disruption. In the same way, seasonal storms bring both destruction and rebirth. This duality is crucial. Ancient people believed the gods brought both order and upheaval, depending on what the cycle required. And this duality echoes in modern reactions to interstellar visitors. When astronomers detected ʻOumuamua, fear and fascination erupted simultaneously. Was it natural? Was it artificial? Was it a messenger? Was it a warning? Was it simply a rock? No explanation felt complete. The object's behavior defied models. Its acceleration was subtle but real. It spun in ways that puzzled experts. It reflected light inconsistently. It came and went so quickly, humanity had barely begun to ask questions before it was already leaving. Then came Borisov, more comet-like, more understandable, but still foreign. Then 3I Atlas, another deep space traveler, another visitor, 3 in less than 10 years. To modern science, this is data. To ancient Sumerian logic, this is pattern. So now we return to the Anunnaki, the beings associated with the turning of cosmic cycles. Who were they really? The answer depends entirely on perspective. To scholars, they are symbolic deities, representations of natural forces. To some alternative historians, they are ancient extraterrestrial visitors. To mythologists, they are psychological archetypes. To cultural historians, they are reflections of early governance structures. But regardless of interpretation, their stories carry a common element. They arrived from elsewhere. Elsewhere does not necessarily mean outer space. Elsewhere may mean higher realms, mythic planes, symbolic landscapes. But the connection to the sky is unmistakable. The Sumerians did not depict the Anunnaki descending from mountains or emerging from oceans or rising from forests. They depicted them coming from the heavens, beings moving with the stars, beings following celestial pathways, beings aligned with astronomical cycles. This is why, in later interpretations, they became associated with Nibiru. Not because a tablet says they lived on a physical planet, none does, but because Nibiru was the symbol of cosmic transition, a place of crossing, a place of alignment, a place of return. So when modern tables of interstellar visitors begin to resemble the ancient idea of foreign stars appearing before cycles turn, a psychological resonance occurs.
even if symbolic, even if accidental, even if mythological. The human mind recognizes patterns, and ancient peoples were masters of pattern recognition. Their lives depended on it. If the flood cycle shifted, the population starved. If the monsoon failed, cities collapsed. If the river changed course, entire settlements vanished. If an unusual star appeared, celestial calendars needed recalibration. The Sumerians had no luxury to ignore anomalies. So when they wrote warnings, they did not write them carelessly. Warnings came from centuries of observation, experience, memory. Which brings us to one of the most intriguing aspects of Sumerian cosmology, the belief that time moves in giant arcs. Today we speak of great years, precession cycles, seasonal ages. The ancients spoke of the same ideas in different language. Ages rise, ages fall, kingship emerges, kingship transfers. The heavens shift, the world responds. This cyclical worldview is the foundation of both myth and astronomy. And it is here, in the long, slow turning of ages, that the concept of Nibiru becomes meaningful. Nibiru is not a disaster. Nibiru is a turning point, a marker that something old is ending and something new is beginning. Modern interpretations often distort this into fear, but ancient interpretations were about awareness. The Anunnaki returning signaled the end of one age and the start of another, not necessarily destruction, but transformation. Civilization resets, kingship shifts, knowledge changes, the world evolves. Now, look again at our modern era. We live at the intersection of monumental change, climate shifts, technological revolutions, scientific breakthroughs, deep space exploration, AI, globalization, philosophical evolution. Humanity is crossing a threshold as significant as any age described in myth. And during this period of transition, objects begin arriving from interstellar space. It is coincidence, it is natural, it is explainable, but it is also symbolic. Because even if the universe carries no intention, the human mind does. We seek meaning. We feel cycles. We recognize turning points. Even modern astronomers speak of epochs and eras. Even cosmologists describe cosmic inflation, stellar generations, galactic evolution, all in terms of cycles. The universe itself moves in phases. Ancient people felt this intuitively. Their myths were not primitive. They were poetic expressions of truths that science is only now unpacking. Truths about motion, truths about recurrence, truths about cosmic rhythm, truths about the feeling that reality is not static, that it is always approaching something new. And that brings us back to 3i Atlas. If you strip away the fear, strip away the myth, strip away modern sensationalism, 3i Atlas is a reminder that the universe is alive with movement, a reminder that our solar system is not isolated, a reminder that deep space is not empty, a reminder that rare visitors do arrive, a reminder that cosmic cycles continue whether we notice them or not. To ancient Sumerians, such a reminder was sacred. It signaled the beginning of inquiry, the deepening of wisdom, the recognition that a new age might be forming. Whether or not one believes in Nibiru, whether or not one sees the Anunnaki as literal or symbolic,
Whether or not one views myth as memory or metaphor, the deeper truth is the same. Civilizations rise during cycles of calm and transform during cycles of change. And humanity, right now, is standing inside a cycle of change. Every technological, environmental, and cultural shift points to an era turning. Not ending, turning. Just as the ancients believed, ages do not cease, they transform. And the arrival of unusual celestial visitors during periods of transformation has always stirred the human imagination. We do not fear the objects themselves. We fear what they symbolize, that the cycle is turning again, as it has countless times before, as it will countless times again. Now, as you rest here listening, you can feel the weight of this cycle settling gently around you, not as fear, not as threat, but as understanding. Understanding that humanity is part of a much larger rhythm. Understanding that ancient people sensed this rhythm and expressed it in stories of returning gods. Understanding that modern science senses it in the movement of planets, comets, and interstellar objects. Understanding that the Anunnaki Warning was not about apocalypse, but about awareness. Awareness of cycles. Awareness of change. Awareness of the cosmos. And in the next segment, we will travel deeper still, into the ancient meaning of cosmic return, the symbolic role of interstellar messengers, and the philosophical idea that humanity may be living through the opening chapters of a new age. When you look at the ancient world through the eyes of the civilizations that lived beneath that immense, unbroken sky, you begin to understand why they believed the heavens were speaking to them. The night was not symbolic. It was not poetic. It was not romantic. It was overwhelming. Imagine standing in the middle of a Sumerian plain, long before cities spread light into the sky. Imagine the Milky Way stretching overhead like a river of white fire. Imagine thousands of stars glowing with a clarity we can barely conceive of today. Imagine the slow arc of planets drifting steadily across months. Imagine meteors cutting luminous scars across the darkness. Imagine comets growing day by day like ghostly visitors approaching from the unknown. Now imagine that one night, among the familiar lights, something appears that should not be there. A star that moves, a star that brightens, a star that behaves with intention. In ancient texts, these were called foreign stars, messengers, torches of the gods, lights of warning, the travelers. They represented something outside the predictable cycle. This is where myth and psychology intertwine. Humans need predictability. We're wired for rhythm. We sleep in cycles. We eat in cycles. We work in cycles. We dream in cycles. Life itself is built on repetition. So when something breaks the rhythm, something rare, something unfamiliar, something that does not fit, the human mind pays attention. This is the root of all omens. Not fear, awareness. The ancient world was constantly interpreting signs, not out of superstition, but because signs helped them survive. A strange pattern in the river meant floods. A shift in animal migrations meant famine. A change in the wind meant storms. A rare event in the sky meant the cycle was turning. And nowhere was this idea stronger than in the stories of the Anunnaki. To the Sumerians, the Anunnaki were not distant abstract figures. They were woven into daily life, into law, into agriculture, into the rhythms of kingship, into the structure of the cosmos. Their mythos was not built on fantasy, it was built on structure. This is why so many researchers from so many disciplines, anthropologists, linguists, theologians, astronomers, mythographers, are drawn to the Sumerians. Their stories do not read like imagination, they read like interpretation. Interpretation of cycles, interpretation of change, interpretation of the heavens. Over time, these interpretations grew into something larger, the belief that the Anunnaki departed and would one day return. But what does return mean in ancient texts? This is the question that most modern interpretations get wrong. Return does not mean arrival on a spacecraft. Return does not mean catastrophe from the sky. Return does not mean a planet crashing into Earth. In ancient languages, return means renewal. Return means transition. Return means the completion of a cycle. Return means the opening of an age. The return of the Anunnaki was symbolic, the moment when the balance of the world shifted into a new form. And in Sumer, these shifts were always tied to celestial cycles. Flood cycles, season cycles, agricultural cycles, astronomical cycles. It's easy to imagine the ancient skywatchers standing on the terraces of great ziggurats, tracking these rhythms night after night, year after year. Their work required patience beyond anything we can imagine. They recorded the rising times of stars for centuries. They monitored lunar phases with mathematical precision. They identified planetary retrogrades long before telescopes. They noted anomalies and encoded them in myths. Imagine a civilization watching the sky for 3,000 years. Imagine what patterns they would see. They would recognize the long cycles of Venus, the slow precession of equinoxes, the appearance of rare comets, the shifting tilt of the heavens across generations. They would see things humanity today has forgotten because our memories do not stretch far enough. And this is where the idea of Nibiru becomes important. Nibiru is not simply Planet X or a hidden world. Nibiru is a concept, a symbol, a representation of the moment when cosmic cycles complete. In some texts, Nibiru is described as the crossing place, the point where one era ends and another begins. Not destruction, transition. The ancients were not predicting catastrophe, they were describing change. But change, in the ancient world, was dangerous, because everything was fragile. One failed harvest could topple a king. One drought could collapse a city. One flood could reset decades of growth. One comet could be interpreted as a sign to shift power. This fragility shaped their worldview, and it shaped their stories. When Nibiru approached, according to some interpretations, the world rebalanced. When the Anunnaki returned, society restructured. These stories are not about fear, they are about timing. And if you look at them through this lens, not as predictions of doom, but as symbolic frameworks for change, they begin to make more sense. Now, shift your mind back to modern times. Picture scientists at observatories watching the movement of interstellar objects on computer screens. The data streams slowly. Trajectories update. Models recalculate. They see 2017, ʻOumuamua, 2019, Borisov, 2024, 3I Atlas. 3 visitors from outside the solar system in remarkably close succession. These objects are not signs of danger. They pose no threat to Earth. They are simply
wanderers. But here is the question. Why now? Why, after millions of years of nothing, do 3 arrive in a decade? The answer may be statistical randomness. It may be improved detection technology. It may be coincidence, but something about it stirs the same instinct that guided ancient astronomers. The instinct that patterns matter, that cycles matter, that the universe does not move randomly. Even in modern astrophysics, patterns rule everything. Stellar evolution, planetary migration, galactic orbits, comet reservoirs, interstellar trajectories, dark matter flows, cosmic filaments. Nothing in the universe is random. Motion follows laws. But laws do not prevent cycles. Laws create them. So, when interstellar objects drift into our solar system at intervals shorter than expected, the human mind recognizes a rhythm, even before science explains it, because the human mind evolved to see patterns long before it evolved to calculate equations. This does not mean 3-eye Atlas is Nibiru. It does not mean the Anunnaki are literal beings returning. It does not mean ancient myths predict modern astronomy. It means something far deeper. Humanity is beginning to see what ancient civilizations sensed intuitively, that the solar system is not a closed system. It is part of a larger cosmic flow. The Sumerians couldn't describe that flow in astrophysical terms, so they described it through myth. And here is the quiet philosophical realization that emerges from this. Myths are not predictions. Myths are reflections. Reflections of how humans understand the universe. Reflections of how cycles shape existence. Reflections of how rare events mark transitions. And when civilizations sense that they are living at the end of one age and the beginning of another, they naturally turn their eyes to the heavens. This is what the ancient Sumerians did. This is what ancient Egyptians did. This is what the Maya did. This is what nearly every ancient culture did. And this is what humanity, in its modern form, is beginning to do again. Because change is coming. Not catastrophic change, not apocalyptic change, but transformative change, just as it has come many times before. We are living through a turning point, technologically, culturally, environmentally, spiritually. We sense it, we feel it, not because of superstition, but because cycles shape everything. Our climates, our societies, our technologies, our ideas. Astronomical cycles, cultural cycles, civilizational cycles. The ancients captured this truth in symbols. We capture it in data. But the truth is the same. We live in a universe that moves in great waves of time. When a wave crests, the world shifts. When it recedes, the world settles. The idea of Nibiru and the idea of interstellar visitors are both reflections of how humans interpret these waves, one through story, one through science. Neither cancels the other. Both reveal something about us, something about the universe, something about our place between the stars. Try to imagine this. Far beyond the orbit of Neptune, far past the Kuiper belt, past the scattered disk, past the frozen silence of the Oort cloud, space begins to blur. There is no boundary, no wall, no edge, only a vast ocean of darkness filled with unseen travelers. Some drift aimlessly. Some follow gravitational tides. Some are fragments of shattered worlds. Some are ancient comets.
some are the debris of stars. And every so often, once in a great cosmic while, one of these travelers crosses our path. Not by intention, not by alignment with myth, but simply because the universe is moving. The ancients saw these travelers and encoded them as signs. We see them now and interpret them as data, but the feeling is the same: wonder, curiosity, unease, a sense of significance we cannot quite explain. This is the essence of tonight's story. Not that the Anunnaki are returning, not that Nibiru is near, not that Three-Eye Atlas is anything more than a visitor, but that the universe is full of movement that humans have always interpreted as part of a larger pattern. And when patterns shift, civilizations shift. We are now approaching the philosophical core of what ancient warnings truly meant. Not fear, not destruction, but awareness. Awareness that the world changes when cycles turn. Awareness that humanity must adapt when ages transition. Awareness that the sky is not separate from our story. It is our story. In the next segment, we will go deeper into Sumerian myth cycles, the idea of ages rising and falling, the meaning of celestial return, and why ancient cultures believed that the heavens signaled transformation long before it arrived. The night grows softer. Your breathing slows. The stars of the ancient world hang quietly in your imagination. A new age is forming, just as countless ages have formed before. There is a moment, as you drift deeper into this story, when the ancient world begins to feel strangely familiar. The symbols change, the languages change, the landscapes change, but the questions do not. The hopes do not. The fears do not. The quiet sense that life moves through invisible cycles, this does not change. The Sumerians believed that time itself was not a straight line. They believed time curved. They believed time breathed. They believed time repeated. Not in the simple way that days repeat, or seasons repeat, or years repeat, but in vast arcs, like the slow inhalation and exhalation of the universe itself. These arcs were called ages. Each age carried certain qualities: a dominant energy, a particular arrangement of fate, a unique balance of order and chaos. When an age ended, the world did not collapse, it transformed. Sometimes gently, sometimes violently, sometimes slowly, sometimes suddenly. Ancient myths from every part of the world describe this same principle. Ages rise, ages fall. Something returns, something departs. The heavens shift, the world adjusts. This idea is not unique to Sumer. It appears in Egyptian dynastic cycles, Hindu yugas, Norse world ages, Greek ages of man, Mayan long counts, Chinese heavenly mandates. Civilizations with no contact arrived at the same conclusion: time moves in chapters. This is important because the Sumerians associated the turning of these chapters with celestial motion, not metaphorically, literally. The sky marked the bookends of ages. When certain stars aligned, when rare astronomical objects appeared, when unexpected lights moved across the heavens, these events signaled that a cycle was ending. And because rare celestial events preceded major changes in ancient history, the Sumerians saw the two as inseparable. This is the foundation of why the Anunnaki became tied to long cycles and cosmic return. To the ancient mind, anything or anyone associated with the heavens was, by definition, part of the cycle of ages. But before we go further, pause for a moment and imagine an ancient age ending. Imagine a city like Eridu or Ur standing at the peak of its power. Huge temples rise above the plains. Cranes lift mud bricks brick by brick. Markets buzz. Rituals unfold. The world feels stable. Then the sky changes. A strange star appears. A comet grows brighter. Storm patterns shift. Rivers overflow. Crops fail. Old kings die. New dynasties rise. Trade routes fracture. Beliefs evolve. The world does not end. The world transforms. This experience would leave an impression so deep that it could shape myths for thousands of years. Not because someone invented a story, but because entire generations lived through a change in the rhythm of reality. Ages ending felt like the gods returning. Who were the Anunnaki in this context? They were the embodiment of cyclical change. Some scholars translate the word as princes, others as those of royal seed, others as the assembly of the gods. But the deeper symbolic layer is this. The Anunnaki represented forces that arrive with ages and depart with ages. So when modern readers see return, they imagine literal reappearance. But ancient readers heard something else. The cycle is turning. Now, look at this through the lens of our story tonight. When an interstellar object enters our solar system, that event does not threaten us. It does not announce catastrophe. But it does remind us that the cosmic environment changes. A small reminder, a quiet messenger, a symbolic whisper. And if these objects appear at moments of transition, moments when humanity is shifting technologically, philosophically, environmentally, the resonance increases. The ancients would have said, "The heavens speak through timing, not through language, not through prophecy, but through rhythm. The rhythm of arrival, the rhythm of return, the rhythm of change." Now consider this. The Sumerians lived in a world where celestial visitors were rare, unpredictable, and awe-inspiring. When a rare star crossed the sky, entire cities took notice. Priests were summoned. Rituals were performed. Kings sought omens. Now imagine how they would have reacted if 3 such visitors had appeared within a decade. The ancient world would have believed an age was ending. This does not mean that modern humanity should see these visitors as signs of disaster. It means that we recognize the psychological continuity between ourselves and our ancestors. We still interpret patterns. We still sense transitions. We still look to the sky for meaning when the world feels like it is shifting. And make no mistake, the world is shifting. Climates are changing. Technologies are accelerating. Cultures are evolving. Philosophies are transforming. Boundaries are dissolving. Beliefs are mutating. Identities are expanding. An age is closing. Not with violence, not with fire, not with collapse, with transition. This is the key idea buried inside ancient warnings. The return of the gods was not about destruction. It was about movement between epochs. It was about the world resetting its balance. But because the world was fragile, the ancients feared these transitions. Fear, after all, is simply awareness of vulnerability. We are less vulnerable now. Our systems are stronger, our knowledge is deeper, our understanding is sharper, but the instinct remains. So when we see rare cosmic visitors, we don't fear them. We feel them, as reminders, as symbols, as subtle signals that the universe is always in motion. This is the philosophical power behind the myth of Nibiru. Not the literal idea of a planet, not the sensational notion of catastrophe, but the symbolic truth that ages turn when long arcs complete. Nibiru is not a threat. Nibiru is a metaphor, a reminder of renewal, a symbol of cosmic timing. And the Anunnaki, in this symbolic interpretation, represent the agents of transition, the forces that oversee the reshaping of the world. Their return simply means a new age begins. And here is the most fascinating part. Sumerian texts say that when the cycle turns, humanity must awaken. Awaken to knowledge, awaken to change, awaken to our place in the cosmos, awaken to the continuity of ages. This awakening has nothing to do with fear. It has nothing to do with prophecy. It has nothing to do with literal beings descending from the sky. It has everything to do with awareness. The awareness that every age carries lessons forward, and that those lessons must be remembered. Ancient civilizations preserve this memory through stories of returning gods. Modern civilizations preserve it through science, philosophy, and cosmology. Different languages, same truth. The universe changes. We change with it. Now let us look once more at 3i Atlas, not with fear, but with wonder. A small, fragile comet crossing unimaginable distances to drift silently through our solar system. It came from a place where the sun is only a pale star among billions. It carries dust from realms no human will ever see. Its structure holds secrets older than our planet. Its journey began before human civilization existed. When such an object arrives, it does not threaten the world. It enriches it. It deepens our understanding. It reminds us of our cosmic context. It connects us to cycles older than the Earth itself. And if it arrives during a period of human transition, that timing creates symbolism, not physical impact, but psychological resonance. This is the same resonance that ancient civilizations felt, the same sense of significance, the same whisper of change, the same intuition that the world is preparing to enter a new chapter. These feelings do not predict fate. They help us interpret it. Because the truth beneath all ancient warnings, all myth cycles, all celestial symbolism is simple. Pay attention when the world changes. Do not fear it. Do not resist it. Do not cling to the past. Just pay attention. The Sumerians believed that awareness steadies the world during the turning of ages. Awareness brings wisdom. Wisdom brings balance. Balance brings a peaceful transition. This idea may be 5,000 years old, but it is more relevant now than at any time in recent history. We stand at the threshold of a new age, not because a planet is returning, not because gods are descending, but because humanity is evolving into something more connected, more aware, more cosmic in its perspective. When ancient people looked at the sky and saw a foreign star appear, they felt the world shifting. When modern humanity looks at the sky and sees interstellar visitors, we feel something similar. A quiet stirring, a subtle intuition, a whisper of change. Not danger, not doom, just transition. Ages turning as they always have, as they always will. We will soon move into the next part of this story, the part where ancient warnings shift from practical to philosophical, from symbolic to introspective. But before we move deeper, let yourself rest in this truth. Humanity has always sensed when the rhythm of the world changes, and that sense is awakening again. There comes a point in this journey, somewhere between the ancient sky and the modern one, where you begin to sense that the story unfolding is not really about comets or planets or gods. It is something deeper, something quieter, something that moves within you as much as it moves through myth. It is the sense that humanity has lived through many ages, and that every age leaves behind a faint memory, a memory that survives in stories long after the people who lived them are gone. This memory is not factual, it is emotional, it is symbolic, it is instinctive. It is the memory of change. The Sumerians recorded their memories in clay. The Egyptians carved theirs in stone. The Maya encoded theirs in cycles of time. The Chinese preserved theirs in dynastic philosophy. The Greeks carried theirs in myth. We preserve ours in science. Different containers, same memory. And now, as interstellar visitors cross our sky for the first time in human history, the same ancient memory stirs again. Not fear, not superstition, just an intuitive awareness that something larger than us is unfolding in the background. This is why we return to the Sumerians, because they were the first to give shape to humanity's feeling that the heavens guide the rhythm of ages. To them, the sky was a calendar of fate, a book of cosmic instructions, a shifting map of divine intention. And the Anunnaki, whatever they truly represented, were the beings associated with the turning of the great celestial wheel. But who were the Anunnaki really? To understand them, we must step into a time before the world separated the sacred from the scientific, before astronomy and myth became different languages, before stories were fiction. In the ancient world, truth was not measured the way it is today. Truth was not confined to literal fact. Truth was something deeper. Imagine an ancient storyteller speaking beneath a starlit sky, telling of beings who came from the heavens and reshaped humanity. To him, the story was not literal or metaphorical, it was both. It described real experiences, sky events that terrified and fascinated, and it described inner truths, the forces that shape civilization. The Anunnaki lived in this dual space. They were cosmic forces, psychological archetypes, and symbolic representations of the way the world moves through change. But the reason their myth survived for 5,000 years is because the Sumerians were not describing imaginary characters. They were describing patterns. Patterns they observed in nature. Patterns they observed in history. Patterns they observed in the heavens. Patterns that returned. The Anunnaki were embodiments of returning patterns. Their arrival symbolized the beginning of a new era. Their departure symbolized the end of an old one. And this is exactly the framework that gives Nibiru its meaning. Nibiru was not just a planet. It was the symbol of the crossing of cycles, the moment when one age gives way to another. It was the crossing place, a cosmic X on the map where past and future touched.
So when ancient astronomer priests saw rare celestial visitors, they interpreted them through the lens of cycles. A wandering star meant the cycle was shifting. An unexpected object meant the heavens were sending a message. A comet growing brighter meant the seasons of fate were changing. A meteor storm meant renewal or danger. And a rare, long-period object entering the inner sky meant the crossing place, Nibiru, was aligning again. Not literally, symbolically. Modern astronomers think in equations. Ancient astronomers thought in metaphors. But both systems describe the same thing. The world changes in patterns. Now consider this. Humanity is not unique in feeling change. Animals sense it, plants sense it, climate systems sense it, oceans sense it, migration patterns sense it, cellular life senses it. Why wouldn't civilizations sense it? This is why ancient people believed the Anunnaki returned at the end of ages, not because literal beings descended, but because civilizations knew when an age was turning. They felt it, just as we feel it today. Because listen closely, we recognize the signs even if we don't speak the same symbolic language. We feel the pressure of transformation. We feel the acceleration of knowledge. We feel the tension between old and new. We feel the instability of climate. We feel technology reshaping identity. We feel boundaries dissolving. We feel humanity approaching a threshold. This is how ages end, not with destruction, with transformation. The ancients represented this transformation as the return of cosmic beings. We represent it as global shifts. Different metaphors, same meaning. Now, let us return to 3i Atlas, not as an omen, not as a danger, but as a symbol of interstellar movement, a symbol of cosmic connection, a symbol of how small events carry profound meaning when they arrive at the right time, a symbol of cycles closing and opening. Think of the timing. ʻOumuamua in 2017, Borisov in 2019, 3i Atlas in 2024. 3 visitors from deep space, 3 reminders of cosmic motion, 3 events humanity had never witnessed until this era. To ancient Sumerians, 3 signs in a row would not be coincidence. 3 was the number of confirmation, the number that meant the heavens were speaking clearly. Now, modern science does not deal in symbolism, it deals in data. And data tells us these objects are natural, not dangerous, not anomalous in a threatening way. But data cannot eliminate meaning. Meaning arises from interpretation. Meaning arises from timing. Meaning arises from resonance. And resonance is what connects ancient myth cycles to modern cosmic events. This does not mean myths are literal. It means myths describe how humans make sense of living inside cycles of change. When the Sumerians said, "The Anunnaki will return when the cycle ends," they meant, we will face transformation when the age changes. And when they said, Nibiru marks the crossing place, they meant, a cosmic alignment signals the turning of the world. Now picture where we stand today, a global civilization, entering a new technological epoch, facing environmental shifts, rewriting our relationship to identity, relearning our place in the cosmos, experiencing the arrival of the first interstellar objects in human history. If you view this moment through ancient eyes, it looks exactly like the end of an age. And perhaps that is why the story of Nibiru persists. Not because a hidden world is approaching,
There is no evidence of that, and ancient texts do not literally describe it. Nibiru persists because it is the perfect symbol for what humanity feels during deep transition, the crossing place, the bridge between eras, the cosmic threshold. So why did the Sumerians tie this threshold to the Anunnaki? Because the Anunnaki represented the forces of change. They were the bringers of knowledge, the reshapers of order, the ones who presided over transitions, the guardians of cycles. When they returned, humanity entered a new phase. Now, step away from myth and into psychology. What the Sumerians described as returning gods may simply have been civilizational transformation, knowledge returning, innovation returning, rebirth returning, evolution returning. In the same way that modern ages begin with new ways of thinking, new technologies, new systems, new understandings, ancient ages began with new identities, new kingships, new calendars, new structures. The return of the Anunnaki was the return of change. So tonight's story is not asking whether the Anunnaki are real or whether Nibiru exists. It is asking why humanity feels cycles so deeply and why rare cosmic visitors awaken something ancient inside us. Because they remind us that we are part of something larger, something older than our species, something written in the motion of stars. And for thousands of years, humans have expressed this feeling in the language of myth. We call it symbolism now, but to ancient people, it was simply truth. A truth the night sky still whispers. Now picture the solar system as the ancients imagined it. A great disk of wandering lights moving through infinite dark. Imagine a long, slow traveler drifting near the edge, a comet, an object, a world. Imagine it swinging inward once every great age. Imagine civilizations watching, remembering, interpreting. The object does not need to be literal to carry meaning. It becomes a symbol, a myth, a metaphor for cosmic return. And that is enough to shape a worldview. What the Sumerians encoded in their stories of the Anunnaki and Nibiru was not astronomy, it was philosophy. A philosophy that told them what to do when ages turned. Prepare, reflect, balance, renew, adapt. This is what the return of the gods meant. And this brings us to the heart of tonight's mystery. Why does humanity feel that we are living through a turning of ages now? Because we are. Not through catastrophe, through transformation. When we look at interstellar visitors, we are not seeing omens. We are seeing ourselves in a cosmic mirror. We are seeing the universe in motion. We are seeing cycles in motion. We are seeing humanity in motion. The ancients would say, the Anunnaki are returning. Modern minds would say, we are evolving. Both statements describe the same truth. In the next part of this story, we will go deeper into the philosophical meaning of return, the symbolism of interstellar travel, and the ancient belief that knowledge itself arrives in cosmic cycles. The night grows softer. Your breath slows. The cosmic rhythm draws you deeper. A new age is forming, as it always has, as it always will. As the ancient world recedes behind us and the modern world grows clearer, you may start to feel a strange tension, a quiet thread connecting two eras that should have nothing in common. One world shaped clay tablets under torchlight. The other shaped spacecraft and telescopes under fluorescent blue screens. And yet, at their core, both worlds turn their eyes upward with the same question: what is arriving from the dark? Because there is something unnerving and yet deeply comforting about rare visitors coming from beyond the solar system. They remind us that the cosmos is not a closed room. They remind us that the universe still has surprises. They remind us that the sky is not a fixed ceiling, but a doorway. Ancient civilizations interpreted this doorway through myth. We interpret it through science. But the doorway is the same. In the ancient world, the Anunnaki stood at that doorway, the guardians of transition, the keepers of cosmic thresholds. Their stories told of ages that rose, ages that fell, and ages that were reborn through their return. To understand the final meaning of these myths, we must explore one more dimension of ancient thought: the belief that knowledge itself moves in cycles. The Sumerians saw knowledge not as a linear accumulation, but as something that descended, retreated, and returned. They believed that humans did not invent wisdom. They rediscovered it in cycles, guided by beings connected to the heavens. In one of the oldest Sumerian inscriptions, there is a line that scholars still debate: "Wisdom comes from the stars." Some interpret this as poetic metaphor. Some interpret it as a spiritual idea. Some interpret it as a memory of astronomical guidance. Some interpret it as something more literal. But the deeper meaning lies in the phrase itself. Wisdom descends. Wisdom withdraws. Wisdom returns. This cycle of knowledge mirrors the cycle of ages, the cycle of civilizations, and the cycle of celestial visitors. Humanity forgets. Humanity remembers. Humanity learns again. And these moments of remembering often align with moments of cosmic change. Imagine this. A Sumerian astronomer priest gazes at the sky and sees a rare object approach. To him, this is not just a visual event. It is a signal that the world is shifting. It means his civilization must prepare for renewal. It means old knowledge must be revisited. It means new knowledge must descend. Now imagine a modern astronomer watching the path of ʻOumuamua on a screen. She knows it is natural, physical, explainable. And yet, she feels something similar. A curiosity, a stirring, a sense of connection. The object, though tiny and harmless, awakens something ancient. Because the human mind has not changed as much as we think, we still crave meaning. We still sense cycles. We still feel the rhythm of change. This is why the mythology around Nibiru persists, even though ancient texts do not describe it as a collision world or an apocalyptic threat. Nibiru is not a catastrophe narrative. It is an age change narrative. It is the crossing place, the threshold, the turning point. And 3i Atlas, innocently drifting through space, becomes a symbol, not because it matches the myth, but because it arrives at a moment when humanity is instinctively searching for meaning again. Some might ask, why do we look to the heavens when the world changes? The answer is older than written language. Humans are pattern-seeking beings. We are wired to interpret the environment for survival. When something rare appears, we assign significance. When the world shifts, we look for signs. When we stand at the edge of transformation, we search for orientation. Ancient civilizations expressed this impulse through myth. We express it through scientific investigation. Both impulses come from the same source: the need to understand what lies ahead. Now imagine ancient Sumer not as a primitive world, but as a civilization intensely attuned to the rhythms of nature. Their astronomers tracked lunar cycles so precisely that modern scientists remain impressed. Their calendars synchronize with solstices and equinoxes across millennia. Their star charts captured movements modern scholars confirmed only in the past century. When such a civilization saw a celestial visitor behaving unusually, they naturally connected it to their doctrine of cycles. A visitor meant transition. Transition meant age shifts. Age shifts meant renewal. Renewal meant the return of divine forces. This is why the Anunnaki became associated with cosmic timing. But who were the Anunnaki on a deeper level? Modern interpretations tend to polarize them. Either they were extraterrestrial beings, or they were purely symbolic deities. But the ancient mind did not make this distinction. To the ancient mind, gods were forces, patterns, intelligences woven into reality itself. They were not up there or out there. They were the intelligence of the cycle, the wisdom of the cosmos, the movement of ages, the return of equilibrium. Their return was not a physical descent. It was a realignment of the world. When the world fell out of balance, through injustice, through tyranny, through drought, through famine, through upheaval, the cycle would turn, and the Anunnaki would return, not as beings of flesh, but as forces pulling the world back into alignment. This is the philosophical interpretation, an interpretation that sees myth as metaphor, not forecast, an interpretation that understands gods as symbols of cosmic principles. Through this lens, the Anunnaki are not extraterrestrials. They are the embodiment of renewal. And Nibiru is not a world, it is the point of return, the crossing place, the hinge of ages. What does this have to do with 3-eye Atlas, or ʻOumuamua, or interstellar visitors? More than you might think. Not because these objects are dangerous, they're not, but because they remind us that the cosmos is interacting with us in real time, that humanity is living at a moment when old knowledge is returning, when new knowledge is descending, when the world is shifting again. And the ancient Sumerians believed that when such a moment arrives, humanity must listen. Listen not for prophecy, listen not for warnings, listen not for catastrophe, listen for wisdom. This is why ancient myths repeat the same idea. Those who understand the turning of the heavens will understand the turning of the world. Meaning, if you understand cycles, you won't fear change. You will adapt. You will evolve. You will awaken. This is the real meaning behind the concept of cosmic return. It is not about planets. It is not about gods. It is not about disaster. It is about consciousness, awareness, alignment with the movement of time. Modern society often treats myth as outdated, but myths are simply the ancient way of recording psychological truths. And the truth encoded in Sumerian myth is that humanity must learn to move with cycles instead of resisting them. The world changes. Civilizations rise and fall. Knowledge is lost and found. Cultures evolve. Ideas transform. And through it all, the sky remains a witness. Looking back at ancient warnings through a calm philosophical lens, we see their true message. Be awake when the world shifts. Not frightened, awake. Because fear clouds understanding, but awareness opens it. Tonight's story is not about literal prophecy. It is not about predicting events. It is not about catastrophic interpretations. It is about entering the mindset of ancient civilizations and understanding why they look to the heavens during times of transformation. Because the truth is, we do the same thing. When the world shifts, we look up, not to escape, but to orient ourselves. Whether we look up for meaning, or for data, or for comfort, the impulse is the same. We seek the sky when the future feels uncertain. It's a psychological anchor, a cosmic reference point, a reminder that change has always happened, that it has happened before, and that we have always adapted. The Sumerians encoded this entire philosophy into the myth of the Anunnaki returning at the end of ages. The return was not destruction, it was guidance, a reminder that the world is transforming and that we must transform with it. This is why tonight's story draws you deeper, not into fear, but into understanding. Interstellar objects are not omens. They are reminders. Reminders that we are part of a much larger system. A system of cycles. A system of motion. A system of renewal. And as we drift into the final part of this story, the part where ancient warnings become reflections on humanity itself, the night grows softer. Your breath slows. Your mind drifts. The cosmic rhythm carries you. Because the final truth behind ancient cycles is not about the heavens. It is about us. As we move deeper into this ancient memory, this feeling that the world is not static but always shifting, you may sense something quiet rising at the center of everything we've explored so far. Something subtle, something easily missed among the stories of gods, ages, and celestial visitors. It is the realization that humanity has always tried to understand one thing above all. What role do we play in the great cycles of the universe? The Sumerians answered this through myth. Modern science answers it through data. But the question has never changed. At the heart of ancient warnings, at the heart of cosmic stories, at the heart of the Anunnaki, at the heart of Nibiru, is not fear, it is identity. Who are we in relation to the cosmos? Are we alone? Are we guided? Are we accidental? Are we meaningful? Are we part of a cycle we barely understand? These questions are older than writing. They echo in every temple, every observatory, every bedtime story, every dream. Ancient civilizations felt this connection keenly. They lived in a world where the heavens were visible every night, undimmed, overwhelming, inescapable. The universe was a constant presence. It breathed over them. It moved over them. It watched over them. They did not think of themselves as separate from the cosmos. They thought of themselves as woven into it. This is why the Anunnaki were never elsewhere. They were never distant gods. They were not removed from humanity. They were present, woven into the fabric of cycles, woven into the breath of time.
And this is why the myth of Nibiru was never a threat. It was a reminder that change is not punishment. Change is not catastrophe. Change is not the end. Change is the nature of existence. Every flood that reshaped the Tigris and Euphrates also brought new soil. Every drought that tested civilizations also catalyzed innovation. Every shift of power opened the door to new structures of thought. Every collapse cleared the ground for the next beginning. This is the rhythm of ages. Now think of how humans today talk about change. We speak of disruption. We speak of crisis. We speak of uncertainty. We cling to stability even when change is inevitable. The ancients thought differently. They saw change as part of the cosmic design, something that must be accepted and navigated and understood. When they saw the heavens shift, they didn't assume punishment, they assumed transformation. The Anunnaki in this context were not destroyers, they were teachers, not in the literal sense, but in the symbolic sense. They reminded humanity to adjust, to evolve, to reflect, to restructure, to grow. These ideas were encoded not in scientific language, but in mythic language, because myth was how ancient civilizations organized the universe. Today, science organizes the universe, but science and myth both serve the same purpose. They help us understand our place in the cosmos. The Sumerians looked up at a rare star and saw a message. We look up at a rare interstellar visitor and see a data point. Different interpretations, same impulse. The impulse to seek meaning. The impulse to understand change. The impulse to connect ourselves to something larger than ourselves. This is why the myth of Nibiru feels so compelling, even when stripped of modern sensationalism. The idea that the cosmos has rhythms that align with human transformation, is deeply poetic and deeply intuitive. Even modern astrophysics recognizes that the universe moves in cycles. The cycles of stellar birth, the cycles of orbital dynamics, the cycles of planetary resonance, the cycles of cometary return, the cycles of galactic rotation. Everywhere we look, the universe breathes in patterns. Why wouldn't human history follow patterns too? The ancients believed that the rise and fall of civilizations matched celestial rhythm. And if we look without scientific bias, if we simply observe, we see echoes of this idea. Civilizations flourish when environmental conditions stabilize. Civilizations transform when environmental conditions shift. Civilizations innovate when challenges arise. Civilizations decline when they fail to adapt. This is not mysticism. It is ecology. It is anthropology. It is psychology. It is astronomy. It is the complex dance between nature and culture that shapes every era. The Sumerians encoded this truth in stories, and while their symbolic language makes modern readers chase literal interpretations, the deeper truth is always about cycles of change. The Anunnaki returning was the universe shifting. Nibiru approaching was the cycle completing. The world renewing was civilization transforming. This interpretation does not dismiss mythology. It reveals its depth. It honors ancient intelligence instead of reducing it to misunderstanding. But myth is not only historical, it is psychological. When ancient civilizations described the return of the Anunnaki,
They were describing the return of awareness. Awareness of our place in the cosmos. Awareness of the fragility of stability. Awareness of the necessity of change. Awareness of the importance of wisdom. Modern humanity, after centuries of technological acceleration, is feeling this awareness return again. Because change is arriving. Not in the form of a planet, not in the form of gods, but in the form of understanding. For the first time in history, we can observe interstellar visitors. We can map the edges of the solar system. We can detect worlds beyond our star. We can model cosmic motion with extraordinary accuracy. We are rediscovering the cosmic environment that ancient civilizations felt intuitively. This is the true meaning of the Anunnaki returning. It is not about beings descending from the heavens. It is about humanity ascending in understanding. Think of this. For thousands of years, humans feared the dark. We feared the unknown. We feared the sky. Now we explore it. We sent probes to the outer planets. We photographed comets. We detected interstellar objects. We mapped the Milky Way. We identified exoplanets. We modeled gravitational waves. The ancients looked upward with awe. We look upward with instruments, but awe remains. Even the most rational astronomer feels a shiver when a visitor appears from interstellar space. Not fear, the shiver of connection. Because in that moment we remember something buried deep in the human psyche. We are part of something much larger than the world we inhabit. This feeling, this connection, is what ancient myths externalized as the return of the gods. But the truth is subtler. It is the return of perspective, the return of cosmic awareness, the return of understanding that humanity is not isolated, but embedded in a living universe. Interstellar visitors do not cause this awakening, they symbolize it. Because when something arrives from the deep dark between stars, it forces us to remember that the universe is vast, dynamic, and full of mystery. That memory is the modern equivalent of the ancient Anunnaki. The gods have not returned. Awareness has. Think of humanity right now. Our technologies are evolving faster than our philosophies. Our tools are growing more powerful than our wisdom. Our connectivity expands faster than our understanding. Our knowledge accelerates even as our balance wavers. This tension, this imbalance, is the hallmark of an age about to shift. And when ages shift, ancient myths say the Anunnaki return. Not to punish, not to destroy, to recalibrate. To bring the world back into harmony with its cosmic context. This interpretation may seem symbolic, and it is. But symbols carry truth in ways that literal language cannot. When you read ancient texts with this understanding, the myths transform. The gods are not cosmic beings, they are cosmic processors. Nibiru is not a hidden planet, it is the metaphor of transition.
The warnings are not prophecies, they are psychological guidance. And interstellar visitors are not omens, they are mirrors. Mirrors reflecting the ancient truth that every age ends not in chaos, but in renewal. Now imagine that you are lying beneath a night sky, as the ancient Sumerians did. The air is cool, the stars shimmer, the earth is quiet, the universe is vast. You feel small, but not insignificant. You feel temporary, but part of something eternal. you feel the age turning, not as fear, not as prophecy, but as a gentle shift in the texture of existence. This is the message hidden behind the Anunnaki. This is the meaning hidden behind Nibiru. This is the wisdom hidden behind the myths of ages. The final step in this journey is to understand what this turning means for humanity now. Because the cycle is shifting again, and the ancients believed that when the cycle turns, humans receive a moment of clarity, a chance to awaken. In the next and final segment, we will walk barefoot into that moment of clarity, into the final meaning of the Anunnaki Warning, into the symbolic truth behind 3-Eye Atlas, and into the soft closing message that gently guides the listener to rest. There is a moment in every long journey, especially one that stretches across thousands of years, when the story turns inward. When the outer mysteries, those scattered across tablets, ruins, star maps, and cosmic dust, begin to reflect something interior. Something about the listener, something about the quiet mind inside the vast world. That moment is here now. Because the final lesson of the Anunnaki, the Sumerians, Nibiru, and the cosmic visitors drifting through our solar system is not about what lies beyond the stars, it is about what lies within us. All ancient myths, once their symbols are stripped away, speak to the human desire to understand change. And when the world changes, when it shifts beneath our feet in ways we cannot yet describe, we search for meaning. The Sumerians searched for meaning by watching the sky. They believed that the heavens revealed transitions long before the earth felt them. They believed rare visitors, rare alignments, rare anomalies carried messages, not literal messages, but symbolic ones. Messages reminding humanity that the world was preparing to step into a new chapter. And they believed that during these turning points, the Anunnaki returned. But return, in ancient language, is not about beings descending. Return is about awareness rising. Beware of reading myths literally. They were never meant to be literal. Beware of reading them as prophecy. They were never meant to predict. Beware of reading them as warnings. They were guidance, not threats. The Sumerians believed the Anunnaki returned when civilizations needed to awaken, not when they needed to fear. A cycle ending did not mean destruction. A cycle beginning did not mean salvation. A cycle turning meant learning. That is what we forget. We imagine ancient stories as distant, primitive, strange. But they were simply early attempts to understand reality. Reality as humans felt it. Reality as humans lived it. Reality as humans feared it. Reality as humans hoped it would become. So when we look at our world today, the acceleration of knowledge, the instability of old systems, the reshaping of identity, the transformation of technology, the environmental shifts, the global interconnectedness, we are feeling the same thing ancient civilizations felt. We are feeling the age turning. This is not mystical. This is not symbolic. This is not superstition. It is observation. History moves in rhythms. Civilizations move in arcs. Humanity moves in waves. Tonight's story is not about a hidden planet or a literal prophecy. It is about what ancient people discovered long before we had instruments. That change comes in cycles, and that cycles bring opportunity. The arrival of interstellar objects, ʻOumuamua, Borisov, 3-Eye Atlas,
is not a threat. It is part of the natural movement of the universe. But their timing evokes myth, because myth is how humans interpret timing. The Sumerians would have looked at these objects and said, "The heavens are shifting. Prepare for renewal. Prepare for knowledge. Prepare for awakening." Not because the objects cause transition, but because they remind us that we are living through one. The psychological power of celestial visitors is not in their physical presence. It is in what they symbolize. The sky is still moving. The cosmos is still alive. We are still connected to it. This feeling is ancient, older than writing, older than agriculture, older than cities. It is the feeling humans have always carried when staring into the dark expanse above them. The sense that we belong to something beyond ourselves. And now, after thousands of years, we are returning to that awareness. We no longer fear the night sky. We explore it. We map it. We traverse it. But the awe remains. Awe that pulls us inward even as we look outward. The Sumerians expressed this awe through the Anunnaki. The Egyptians expressed it through the duat. The Maya expressed it through the long count. The Greeks expressed it through the ages of man. And we express it through science, through philosophy, through cosmology, through the quiet sense that something is shifting again. Not the return of gods, the return of understanding. This is what the ancients meant when they said the Anunnaki would come back. They meant humans will remember again. Remember what? Not myths, not prophecies, not fear. Remember connection. Connection to the sky, connection to time, connection to cycles, connection to the universe, connection to ourselves. Because somewhere along the path of civilization, we forgot that we are not separate from the world, or from the cosmos, or from the ages that shaped us. We forgot that humans, too, move in cycles. We grow, we collapse, we rediscover, we expand. We evolve. And every time we evolve, we feel the shift before we understand it. That is the meaning of return. Now imagine, for a moment, something softer, quieter. Imagine you are standing on ancient soil, Sumerian soil, the dust warm beneath your feet. The horizon stretches flat and far. The air tastes like clay and smoke. The wind is a low whisper. Night is falling. Above you, the stars shimmer with a clarity long lost to modern skies. You see the familiar constellations, the ones used to measure time, to predict seasons, to guide farmers, to guide travelers. But tonight, a new light moves across the sky. Slowly, consistently, quietly. It is not a planet. It is not a familiar star. It is something else. You watch without fear. You watch with curiosity, with reverence, with the ancient instinct that rare things carry meaning. You do not think, this is danger. You think, this is time turning. This is how the ancients saw the heavens, not as omens of doom, but as indicators of rhythm. The rhythm of cycles, the rhythm of endings, the rhythm of beginnings, the rhythm of ages. Now return to the modern world. to telescopes scanning all horizons, to digital maps of the cosmos, to scientists tracking interstellar objects with precision unimaginable to ancient minds. And realize this: we are witnessing something no human civilization has ever witnessed before. We are watching interstellar objects move through our solar system in real time. The cosmos is no longer distant. It is entering our neighborhood. Not as threat, as connection. Connection to the larger system that ancient myths symbolized. Connection to cycles that shape worlds and civilizations. Connection to the truth that humanity is not the center of existence, but part of its flow. This is the true meaning behind the ancient myth of return. And now, as we approach the final quiet arc of tonight's journey, you may find yourself sinking deeper into stillness, into reflection, into the softer space between wakefulness and rest. Because ancient stories were not designed to alarm the listener. They were designed to guide the listener into contemplation, to help them sleep with understanding, not fear. So let yourself lean into the quiet. Let the weight of the day soften. Let the sound of this story become slower, gentler, as if the universe itself is exhaling around you. There is only one piece left, one final movement, one last descent into the heart of the myth. A descent into the ultimate meaning of why ancient civilizations watched the heavens, why they encoded warnings, and why those warnings were never meant to frighten. They were meant to prepare. Prepare the mind, prepare the spirit, prepare the heart. Not for catastrophe, for understanding. In the final chapter, we will step into that understanding. We will explore the last message hidden in ancient warnings, the message that speaks directly to the listener resting now, breathing slowly, held gently by their night. As we enter the final stretch of this long, drifting journey, the noise of the world begins to fall away. What remains is something older, quieter, and strangely comforting. A sense that the story of the heavens, the story of the ancient world, and the story of the present moment are all woven into a single thread. A thread that stretches across ages. A thread that connects every civilization that ever looked up at the night sky. A thread that connects you, right now, to the people who first carved tablets beneath torchlight in ancient Sumer. Because although thousands of years separate us from them, the emotion behind their stories has never changed. The feeling of standing beneath a sky full of stars. The feeling of sensing that the universe is alive. The feeling of knowing we are part of something larger than ourselves. This feeling is universal. It belongs to every age. It belongs to every civilization. It belongs to every human who has ever wondered why the heavens move the way they do. And it is in this feeling that the final meaning of the Anunnaki myth unfolds. The ancients never intended their warnings to frighten. They intended their warnings to illuminate, to draw attention to the rhythm of the world, to remind humanity that ages turn, to guide civilizations through transitions, to help people understand their place in time. Tonight, as you rest in the softness of this story, you can sense that same guidance. A gentle reminder that the world is shifting, but shifting does not mean breaking. Changing does not mean ending. Transformation is simply the universe breathing. Ancient Sumerians understood this deeply. To them, the Anunnaki were not beings arriving in flaming chariots. They were symbols of transformation, symbols of wisdom reappearing, symbols of renewal. Their return was not physical, it was philosophical. It meant that humanity was about to enter a new state of awareness. This is the quiet truth hidden beneath the myth. The return of the Anunnaki is the return of understanding. An understanding we lose and find again. An understanding that cycles through history. An understanding that seems to awaken when humanity needs it most. The ancients encoded this awakening in the symbol of Nibiru, the crossing place, the moment when cycles shift, the hinge between ages. Nibiru was not a world of destruction. It was a metaphor for the moment when the universe invites humanity to evolve. In our modern era, this invitation takes a different form. Not myth, not prophecy, not fear. It takes the form of knowledge, technology, cosmic awareness, exploration, understanding. And among this new awareness comes the quiet miracle of interstellar visitors. ʻOumuamua, Borisov, Three-Eye Atlas. These objects are not signs of disaster or return. They are signs that the boundary between worlds has always been permeable. They remind us that the solar system is not a sealed sphere, but a crossroads, a place where travelers pass, sometimes
Unseen, sometimes unexpected, sometimes recognized only by the generations ready to perceive them. We are that generation, the first humans to detect objects arriving from beyond our star, the first to map their trajectories, the first to watch them move through our neighborhood with precision, the first to understand that our world is not alone, not isolated, not still. To the ancient mind, this would be the moment when a new age begins, not because something dangerous is coming, but because something old is returning. The awareness that the universe is alive with motion, and that humanity is finally learning to listen again. The oldest lesson hidden in Sumerian myth is that cycles of transformation are not to be feared. They are to be met with clarity, with patience, with openness, because the ending of an age is simply the beginning of another. This is why ancient civilizations encoded their warnings in stories instead of instructions. Stories guide the mind. Stories shape awareness. Stories prepare the heart. When they wrote that the Anunnaki would return, they meant that humanity would awaken to new knowledge, new vision, new understanding. A return of consciousness, not a return of beings. A renewal of wisdom, not a renewal of fear. A shift in perspective that happens quietly, softly, as people begin to sense that the cosmos is not distant, but close, very close, drifting above us in darkness, breathing around us in patterns, and softly brushing our awareness through the appearance of rare interstellar visitors. No myth is literal. No myth is meaningless. Every ancient story is a record of how early humans felt the universe move. So tonight, as you linger in the gentle stillness between wakefulness and sleep, you can feel that same movement, the same cosmic rhythm that the Sumerians felt, the same rhythm that shaped their stories, the same rhythm that shaped their warnings, the same rhythm that shapes the world still.
a rhythm that says, "The age is turning." Breathe. Let go. Awaken gently. Understanding is returning, just as it always has, just as it always will. In the end, the true Anunnaki warning is not about catastrophe. It is not about hidden worlds. It is not about beings descending from the sky. It is about letting change arrive softly, without fear. It is about recognizing that cosmic visitors are reminders, not threats. It is about accepting that transformation is part of the story of being human. It is about remembering that humanity's journey is woven into the same cycles that shape stars, planets, and ages. And as the night settles deeper around you, as your breath slows, as your thoughts drift like dust through a quiet cosmic wind, you can rest knowing that the universe moves gently. It does not rush. It does not force. It simply turns its pages and invites us to read along. So allow this story to close softly. Allow the ancient world to fade into the dark. Allow the myths to settle like quiet embers. Allow your body to release. Allow your mind to rest. You are living through a turning age, and you are ready for it. Not because of prophecy, not because of fear, but because humanity always adapts when the cycle calls. It is the oldest lesson we have, the truest one, the gentlest, the one carved into clay 5,000 years ago and written in starlight tonight. The age is turning, and you are exactly where you need to be as it does. Before you drift fully into sleep, let your thoughts become light, almost translucent, like dust settling over ancient stone. You've walked through forgotten ages tonight. You've stood beneath skies that no longer exist. You've listened to the echoes of civilizations that tried, just like us, to understand their place in the universe. And now, there is nothing left to understand, nothing left to analyze, nothing left to hold on to. Just rest. The world outside can wait until morning. The cycles can turn without your effort. The cosmos can move without your attention. Right now, you are safe. You are warm. You are still. Feel the breath move gently in your chest. Feel your body become heavy and quiet. Feel your thoughts drifting like small boats on a calm night sea. If your eyes haven't closed yet, let them soften. Let them melt. Let them disappear into darkness. You've traveled far enough for one night. Sleep now, deeply, easily, as the ancient world settles behind you and the universe hums softly overhead. Good night, and may your dreams carry you through gentle skies and quiet ages.